So welcome to the last week of our class, Cross-Cultural Communications. Today, we are privileged to have three groups of experts presenting some of their research related to cross-cultural communications. And our first group is this group, these people, and I will stop talking so that you guys are able to show your expertise in talking. However, I remind all of you, it's very good to always remember two things when you're communicating. You know something and you probably know what you think is good. So you can communicate something. Sometimes you will think you communicated perfectly, but you fail. Even if it's translated perfectly, maybe the translation doesn't communicate well in a different culture or a different value. So the second thing you must check after you check, do they understand your words, is do they understand your intention? Make sure you continue to check those things. Go ahead. Solwyn Kim, Huang Wanki, Wilwin, and Gwen.
All right, so our topic is how to study effectively as a female university student, and we are group 7. And this is our table of contents. We're going to start with the abstract, which I'll hand it over to Herman.
So the purpose of the research was to find out effective study environment and habits for students. We believe the outcome of research can help students who struggle to achieve satisfied study results and grades. Method used was quantitative method, which was survey, and we have found number of different findings through survey. First one, we can say relations between frequency of study and grades. Second is whether environmental factors affect study outcome. Third one is whether location affects study outcome. And the fourth one is relations between study outcome and retention of course materials. I would like to take questions if you guys have any, but for convenience of the whole presentation, I think maybe taking question at the very last part of presentation will be more convenient. So please understand that. Moving on to introduction. So every student has their own goals, getting high grades from university courses, passing an exam to acquire a certificate, and obtaining high GPA for post-university goals can be reason for students. Therefore, we thought it is important for students to know their study habits and effective method which suit them. Thus, this research aims to find out effective study method and study environment, which will help students to obtain successful academic outcome. This presentation will be discussing about previous studies about the topic, methodology used for research findings, and analysis of survey results. And conclusion will be shared with providing shortcomings of this research. So moving on to literature review.
If you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Yes, testing 1, 2, 3. I can't hear whoever's speaking now. We may need to move on to the next person in the group.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry, my microphone is broken. Sorry. And I'm gonna introduce some literature reviews for you guys on our topic. I just pick up some relatively important articles and make some summaries, and the key points are on the PPT. The first reference is called Attention Drainage Effect, How Background Music Affects Conservation in Taiwan College Students. The professor in the article just gave the conclusion that the best condition for the students to concentrate in was a quiet room with no music, which also helped us to find out whether music can promote students' efficiency when they are studying. And the learning styles and the strategies of effective language learners introduced some new learning methods like communicative, analytical, authority-oriented, and concrete. And also the article talk about some opposite ideas concerning the learning styles, like direct versus indirect, visual versus auditory, extroversion versus introversion, and so on. Please, next page. Agree? Oh, yeah. And the test enhanced learning in the middle school science classroom, the effects of quiz frequency and placement. The article made the conclusion that schooling of study time and self-testing was also a significant factor playing an important role in real-world student achievements. And the effect of classroom environment on student learning. The article places an emphasis on the learning environment, which plays a crucial role in keeping students engaged and allowing them to be successful within the classroom. Even though according to our results that outside factors have little correlation with students' grades, it still provides a good idea for students. And then next, please. And then the last valuable reference shown here is called peer teaching as an effective method, case study at ST University in China. It mainly talks about an effective method which can improve students' learning ability and achievement. The article mentions peer teaching, which can be defined as learning exchange way, since it enables active knowledge exchange, experience, and different concepts and ideas. Through the different interaction between students, peer teaching promotes active learning as well as participation within themselves. Student teachers enhance their own depth of knowledge in the topic by instructing others. Then the reference also mentioned case study. The purpose of the study was to measure the effect of case studies on learning outcomes and the attitudes toward instructions. And learning outcomes were assessed by paper-based exams, and attitude toward instructions were measured by attention, relevance, competence, and satisfaction of the course. In the end, according to these articles and references mentioned above, though there are some errors which are not covered in our own research, I think we can still get some new and creative ideas, and also it is helpful and beneficial to our own study. It's done. Next part.
Okay. So we saw the problem is there are many students who want to improve their study as well as their grades, but there are a large amount of study environments, study habits that make them lost, wondering which is the best and suitable for them. Nextly, the subjects of the survey were many Kiamyang University students. So for the resolution, we use quantitative method like Kim was said, and we were asking students some question through Google survey form to find out the best effects study environments and to help them achieve their goals. For example, next slide, please. We were asking students about what is their major, genders, what they do they study most or less? Do they listen to music when they study, or if do, what genre? What grade do they get? And where do they study? How many hours do they study? How many study break do they take? And how many days a week? How many people they study with, or they study alone? Or how they remember the material they study after the course is complete? Anyone have any question? Please feel free to ask. Please move on to the next slide, please.
So for our results, well, first of all, we surveyed about 50 students, but some of them answered that they weren't Cayman University students. So we took out those results since our results are specifically helpful towards Cayman University students. And so with our results, we split them into 3 groups: students who got straight A's, which was 7 people, students who got A's and B's, 25 people, and the remaining was people who got B's and C's. So out of the 7 people who got straight A's, 3 of them studied at a cafe, 3 studied at home, and 1 studied at the library. 3 students studied for more than 6 hours per day, 3 studied for 3 to 5 hours per day, and 1 studied for 0 to 2 hours per day. 3 students studied for 0 to 1 hours at a time, 3 students studied for 1 to 3 hours at a time, and 1 student reported studying for more than 6 hours at a time. 4 students said that they take study breaks every 30 minutes, and the other 3 students said that they take study breaks every hour. 2 students said that they studied 6 to 7 days per week, and the other 3 said they studied 4 to 5 days per week, and 2 said that they studied 2 to 3 days per week. However, the days of the week that the students studied the most and the least, it ranged greatly with no commonality. Some students said they studied the most on weekends, whereas other students said that they studied the least on weekends. So we couldn't find a common day between all the students. And then 5 out of the 7 students said that they listened to no music while they study, and the other 2 said they listened to soft blues and jazz respectively. 4 students said that they study alone, and the other 3 that they study with 1 to 2 other people from the same class as them. Yet, despite their high grades, only 1 student reported anything other than a 3 on the material retention scale. So that means like a 3 out of 5. A 1 would be that they remembered, like they didn't remember much of the material. And a 5 would mean that they very well remember the material, but most of them said 3, whereas only one person gave it a 5. So for the A's and B's group, out of the 25 people, 11 said that they studied at a cafe, 8 study at home, and 4 study at the library, and 2 people left the question blank. 13 students studied for 3 to 5 hours per day, and 12 studied for 0 to 2 hours per day. 4 students said they studied for 0 to 1 hours at a time, 18 students studied 1 to 3 hours at a time, and 3 students studied 3 to 6 hours at a time. 6 students said that they take study breaks every few hours, 9 said every hour, 5 said every 30 minutes, and 5 said that they take study breaks more often than every 30 minutes. 3 students said that they study 6 to 7 days per week, 12 students study 4 to 5 days per week, and 10 students study 2 to 3 days per week. Similarly to the straight A's groups, the days of the week that the students study the most and least ranged greatly with no commonality. And music as well ranged from classical to ballad to pop to even no music that they listen to when they study, which again also has no commonality between all the people. 17 students said that they study alone, 4 said that they study with 1 to 2 other people from the same class as them, and 4 said that they study with 1 to 2 people from different classes as them. And 3 students said that they remember the material that they study as a 4 out of 5. 15 students gave it a 3. 3 students said 2, and 4 students said that they remember the material 1 out of 5. And the B's and C's group, out of the remaining 12 people of the survey, 3 students studied at a cafe, 7 studied at home, and 1 studied at the library, and 1 person left the question blank. 3 students studied for 3 to 5 hours per day, and 9 said that they studied for 0 to 2 hours per day. 5 students studied for 0 to 1 hour at a time. 5 students studied for 1 to 3 hours at a time, and 2 studied for 3 to 6 hours at a time. 3 students said that they take study breaks every few hours. 3 said every hour. 3 said every 30 minutes, and 3 said that they take a study break more often than every 30 minutes. 5 students study 4 to 5 days per week. 4 students study 2 to 3 days per week, and 3 students study 0 to 1 days per week. No student in the B's and C's group reported studying 6 to 7 days per week. And out of the 12 students, only 1 reported studying on the weekend. Once again, music had a large range between the students, and there was no common ground between them. 7 students said that they study alone, 4 said they study with 1 to 2 other people from the same class as them, and 1 said that they study with 1 to 2 other people from a different class as them. 6 students said that they remember the material they study as a 3 out of 5, 3 students said 2 out of 5, and 3 students said 1 out of 5. So a summary of the results, the only people who reported studying more than 6 hours per day came from the straight A's group. The majority of students, despite their grades, either studied at a cafe or at home. And most students, once again, despite what group they were put in, said that they study alone. The music genre is extremely diverse with no commonality. The only group who did not study on the weekends was the B's and C's group. And the B's and C's group took the most often study breaks and studied for less hours at a time compared to the other 2 groups. And finally, the average retention level was a 3 out of 5 across all 3 groups. So our conclusion, well, first of all, one thing that we've concluded is that music has seemingly no influence on studying. All students across the board listen to a very wide variety of music despite what grades they get. Also, our results tell us that outside factors such as where a student studies, what music they listen to, what day of the week that they study on seem to have little impact on a student's grades. Results were pretty similar across the board. For example, most students studied alone, either at a cafe or at home, despite what grade range they were in. Similarly, the music choices and days of the week the students study on was so diverse that there was no correlation. So this leads us to believe that there must be some other factors that differentiate these 3 groups. However, if you want to model yourself after the students who got the highest grades, this is what you should do. First of all, it doesn't matter what days of the week you study on, simply that you put more hours per day and week into studying. Specifically, the highest groups studied 3 to 5 hours per day, or 6+ hours per day for the straight A groups, and at least 4 days per week. Also, be sure to take breaks every half hour or hour, but not more often than every half hour. The only group that took breaks more often than every half hour was the group who got the lowest grades. Also, don't worry about what music you listen to, because our results show no relation to which music the students listen to and what grades they got. So you don't have to think that if you only listen to classical music while you study, then you're gonna get the best grades ever. Just listen to whatever music you want to. However, most of the students from the straight A's group listen to no music. So if you're going for straight A's, then maybe no music might be the best option for you. Also, the best place to study would either be at a cafe or at home, and studying alone would also be the best option. So we did find in our study that no matter what grades the students got, the majority of all students only reported a high of 3 out of 5 for the retention level, which is straight average. It means that they didn't retain a whole lot of what they studied. So this leads us to believe that the students are studying in order to get a good grade rather than to remember what they studied. So further research could look into study methods that help students actually remember what they study long-term instead of just studying to get a good grade. Also, our study only looked at outside factors, the environment of studying, without considering inside factors of studying. For example, how much dedication a student puts into their studying, or their ability to focus while studying, or their thoughts and emotions the student might have. So other studies can look at how inside factors affect studying. And also, since we know that a lot of students like to study alone at cafes, perhaps our information could be useful to cafes around campus as well. Like they could offer more one-person tables so that more students can be able to use their facilities, since they know that a lot of students like to study alone. And here are references. Does anybody have any questions?
And although we heard that we're we're supposed to not ask questions at the beginning, I take it now is the time you're interested in checking your intention was understood.
Yes, please.
Feel free to go ahead.
Can I say something?
Please.
Sure.
Actually, or it's more so like feedback. Is that okay as well?
Yes.
Of course.
Okay, so I actually think you guys did very well on your project. I feel like the intention was very clear, and your delivery was very clear as well. For me, I don't have any questions because I feel like everything was answered in the way you presented it. I especially like the way you guys kind of presented your survey methods and survey questions and results. I felt like that was very self-explanatory in a way, and the way you kind of broke it down between like the different sections of how the students got their grades, I think that was really well put together.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
The biggest thing that we're trying to focus on is the cross-cultural communication. So how can you suggest ways that their message can be better understood by people from more cultures and more values and more languages?
We were putting many we were putting the 4 languages like Vietnamese, English, and Korean and Chinese in the survey as well.
Great, that's awesome. Can you actually expand on that? Because I didn't see that in the presentation.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you show the survey, please? Yeah, we were putting 4 languages in the survey.
That's great. Did you find sorry, I will bite my tongue until your classmates are able to give some comments.
And the responder of the survey were from many cultures, like Chinese, Vietnamese, Korean, and other country like America, and yeah.
Okay, we can't wait too much longer. If you are not going to get more feedback from your classmates, I will just go ahead and get the next group ready to present. And while we're talking, make sure everyone in class is filling out the evaluation forms. One of the things, for example, it was talking about the small details, class requirements. It's supposed to be related to the class. I know you guys have an intention of relating it to cross-cultural communications, and your survey, as you show right there, shows that you have it in several languages, but your abstract and your introduction, for example, don't say anything about other cultures or values. There were statements about music. That was good. So try to make sure your message and the intention are understood for other cultures and values. That's one point. Again, I was saying the next group, I guess it was Maria, your group can be or should be presenting now, so we don't run out of time. I see 3 different groups. Any other comments before the next group starts?
Thank you for your presentation, guys. It was really interesting, especially the way how you explain it to us. However, I have one question related to the result part. I did not understand the scale you was used in your survey. You mentioned about the, I think it was like Gwen part. She mentioned about the scale. And then the previous slide, I think it was, yeah, the last one.
Okay.
On the material retention scale.
So one of the questions was, how well do you remember the material that you study on a scale from 1 to 5? 1 being that you don't remember the material that you study, and 5 being that you remember the material that you study very well. So most people reported a 3, which is average. They remember some stuff, but they don't remember some stuff. So it's not that they remember a lot of what they study. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thank you so much.
Related to what you were just saying, would you be able to summarize 2 things? One, what is the main point that you're teaching the world? Your abstract main lesson for the world, that's number 1. Number 2, may answer that. Is there a way you could say what was it? 6 hours, I don't know, you said that there's several different groups of students. Do you find a different culture for students that are very much focused on studying many hours? You did say that there's no difference between students studying with music or without music. There is no impact related to that. But are there different groups or different cultures of students related to study habits? Could you summarize that while you're clarifying the abstract lessons?
Does somebody else in my group want to take this question before I go talking about it? Nope. Okay, I'll take this question. Could you repeat it again? I just forgot it. Could you repeat the question, please? So
Sure.
Clear up the abstract, and what was the second part of the question?
The abstract, yes, it says what you want to do and what you want to study, but it doesn't say what you've found. What were the lessons you're teaching the world? So I'm asking you to clarify, what is the main lesson you're teaching the world? And the second one may relate to that. Did you find that there are different cultures within students? Is there, in addition to the culture of students that study many hours every day, is there some other cultural value or cultural aspect of students that identify the best performers versus middle performers versus poor performers? Is there some, since it's cross-cultural communication class, is there a culture that you have found within students that makes a difference?
Okay, so can I answer that question first?
Sure. Yep.
Okay, I have a really bad memory. So once you say that, once you start with the end of the question, then I forget the beginning of the question. So I'm going to start with the end of the question. Okay, so we didn't exactly find that there was a cultural influence because our study focused on the outside influence on studying, like the environment around the students, whereas cultural influences is more of an inside factor. It's like thoughts and ideals that people hold inside of them that can affect their study. So our study did not focus on that. So we found none of that related because it's not what we were looking for. Does that answer that part of the question?
Okay, again, similar to your abstract, you were showing what you were looking for, which is great. But rather than what you want, my question is
What we found?
exactly what
Okay.
intention of teaching the world?
So
Tell me that related to students and tell me that related to your abstract overall studies.
okay, so what we found is that, so I told you what we were looking for. We were looking to see how outside factors affected studying. And what we found is that those outside factors doesn't have a lot of impact on the students. We're also trying to tell students like, so these students got good grades because of these outside factors. And so model yourself after, like you can model yourself after those students. So actually it's written right here in my conclusion. How thorough do you want me to get?
I didn't hear the last comment you were making. I heard that you found it, students can do whatever they want to study. It doesn't matter about the environment for studying. That seems to be the lesson you're giving the world. Okay.
Generally, okay.
Generally, okay. And is that the main abstract lesson also that you're teaching? Is that
Somebody else in my group.
Our main teaching is students, like they should know in which environment set they are in, they can perform their best. And like Gwen mentioned, students can model themselves after realizing in what kind of environments they can create the best outcome. They
And
can
it's
create.
written also like the best environment that we found is also right here at the bottom of the conclusion, that last paragraph.
exactly? You guys have an intention, you have a meaning, but hidden in your story. So a lot of people from other cultures may misunderstand. That's why it's best to clarify it right up front, first sentence in your abstract.
Okay. Thank you.
Found it?
Oh, do you want me to do that right now?
Sure, if you can,
Oh.
for the people. And again,
Oh, I feel like we should move on to the next group or we'll run out of time.
group, let me be clear. We are waiting for you. Group number 2, Maria's group,
Yeah.
you're running out of time.
No, I'm here just because you were answering some questions. I didn't want to interrupt, but we're ready.
You are the boss. We're waiting for you to present. As soon as you start presenting,
Okay.
I'm gonna stop
Can
there.
I share the screen?
you
Okay.
other group 1, they
Okay. It's here already. So, hi everyone. This is Maria, Minjin, and Jules. Our project was about cultural differences within the student body at Kenyon University. So first, we're going to present our abstract. The purpose of our project was to identify how cultural differences are managed in the university and what can be improved. Our method was quantitative. So we surveyed international and Korean students to get our results. And what we found from this is that the language barrier, it's the main issue. We're gonna go more into depth later. Okay, so our introduction.
Yeah, so the base of the problem we were looking for was the cultural differences inside the student body, inside Kim Il-sung University, because for that, this question is this topic is quite important for us because Kim Young University claims to be the world leader in higher education. 440 affiliated universities and institutions in 64 countries, 138 exchange students during the fall semester of 2021. So yeah, this is quite important that we maybe can check if this is true, and if not, how can we improve? So we came up with a question, a simple question. How does Kim Young University manages cultural differences within their student body, and what can be improved?
Yeah, the literature review. I will remind some of our literatures. And first, cultural learning theory and globalization. It divides in 4 stages, as you see here. In honeymoon stage, when you meet new environment, you feel nice and like it. But in uncomfortable stage, you will meet difficulties and feel negative impact. In 3rd stage, you recover and accept culture and get confidence. And lastly, it feels a bit strained and already adjusted. And instead, recent technologies can help to reduce culture shock and increase cultural learning by online and mobiles. And in this article, researchers compare immigrant elementary students in Spain. Immigrant students show homesickness, feeling of isolation, and attitude of avoidance, as we can expect. So we understand, and I mean, in here, the researcher showed that language is one of the main obstacles, and the research emphasized tolerance and empathy to reduce their isolations and cultural shocks. In the cultural difference on the table, they focus on food and drink in cultural aspect, in the idea that eating is very effective way to communicate and increase social bond. On the other hand, different food culture can separate those people. So want to use food and drinks to understand culture and increase interaction with exchange students and local students. And we understand intercultural communication has barriers that anxiety, uncertainty, and ethnocentrism. Yeah, so it is important to solve this. Oh. And here are the highs and lows of cultural tradition. We found out the cultural difference and adjust their stresses, and the results seems reliable. The research seems reliable because especially this article has big number of survey in different countries, and on right side, I don't know why it doesn't show now. And oh yeah, in the right one, similarly provide nice assessment and criteria to foreign student adaptation and the prediction as well. So yeah, it helps our development to better support system to foreign students.
Okay, so now about the survey plan and results. We divided the people we were going to survey into international students and Korean students. So the international students, we wanted to see how people from different nationalities adapt to Korean culture. And as for the Korean students, our goal was to see how they adapt to having international classmates and how they help them to adapt to Korean culture. So that's why our method was a case study and survey research. So first we conducted the survey and then we organized and analyzed the data.
So yeah, just as Maria said, we conducted a survey on international students first. well, we're going to talk about the international students' results of the survey first. So yeah, international students' feeling about Keimyung University is quite mitigated from what we have researched through our survey. They have often a hard time making Korean friends. And for some, their body only helps them with administrative operations. Only 18% find the program not so helpful. 80% of the international students we surveyed. So outside, of course, of administrative operations. And what really is stunning is that 30% of students have not talked to a single Korean students at the time of our survey, of course. And the ones that did were mostly introduced by them, by their body. So knowing this program is not so helpful to everyone, we can easily assume that some people have a hard time finding alternatives. We also conducted a survey on Korean students. So on the other hand, 44% of the surveyed Korean students didn't make foreign students friends. And about 96% want to also, 96% want to make friends, sorry. Also, only 66% has ever talked to a foreign student. According to them, language barrier is also the biggest problem, but they seem to have no chances of meeting new foreign people. We can pick a little quote from our survey. No activities outside of class to chat with foreign students. So this should be taken into the context because, of course, there is the COVID pandemic acting right now. But 66% are willing to participate to the buddy program, assuming they want to befriend foreign people.
Okay, and then based on these results, we came up with a new proposals. In general, the university is doing a good job managing cultural differences. However, we came up with these proposals about how to address the cultural difference matter. The first two, Minjin is gonna explain them.
Yes, we suggest to make a food culture day. As we saw in the background literature, food and drinks are a good way to understand culture and enhance the communication. So making a program that providing Korean food culture with Korean food is, I think, very effective. And it can be weekend or maybe with small groups. It depends on the availability. Yes, and second suggestion, a council program also needed because exchange students meet very different environment with all new people. They can meet in the English program or in the class, but sometimes they are not. So it is often when they have language barriers. There are students who can speak English nor Korean, so school need program for them, or they may fail to adapt in Korean society and maybe fall into depression. So we need council program for them.
Now, with the results, we found that there were a lot of students that had issues with the food, and there's a lot of international students that eat at the dormitory's cafeteria. So that's why this proposal is about providing more vegetarian and vegan options for every meal, as well as non-spicy options. Also related to the body program that we talked about later, but I'm gonna remind you guys a little bit about what it is. So every exchange student is assigned a Korean student for them to help with paperwork or just like adapting to culture and even being their friends. So about this program, give exchange students the body's contact information before coming to Korea. because that way, if they have any questions, they can ask their buddy before flying to the country. And as for conclusions, we found out that the biggest issue is the language barrier. This is not something that the university can control, so that's why having programs such as the Body Program, International Day, and KLACE, I'm going to explain this a little bit in a minute, are a good way of bringing people together. Because what we found out is that not only the problem with the language barrier comes from the international students, but also from the Korean students. So through these programs, for example, you take the Korean students that actually speak another language. Most of them speak English, but there's also Russian, Spanish, French, and more languages. And you pair them up with an exchange student. So that's how you can bring Korean and international students together. The International Day program is about international students explaining their culture to middle school students, and they get paired with Korean students for them to translate all the information. And the KLACE program, it's for international students who want to learn more about the Korean language and culture. So they get paired with a Korean student and they act as the teachers to the international students. So these are very good programs relating to cultural differences within the university. However, there's some Korean students that don't know about this program and also international students that don't know. So it would be good to have more diffusion for these programs. And as a final thought for our project, something to teach the world, it's that we should be willing to learn about other cultures. This is the concept of acculturation that the professor taught us at the beginning of the class, and do our best to handle cultural differences, but also to embrace these differences as we all now live in a globalized world. These are our references, and thank you. That would be all. If you have any questions or comment, we would appreciate them.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Did everyone understand what we said here?
I would like to make a comment, actually.
Yes.
Could you go back 2 slides? I think like 2 slides ago. Yes. Okay. So I had a thought. So maybe the biggest issue is the language barrier, but maybe it's not entirely out of the university's control. Like, for example, the university could make it a requirement for all exchange students to take a Korean language class, and then that would help with the language barrier as well. That was a thought I just had.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time, Gwen? I couldn't hear you.
Sorry.
Directly into the microphone. I couldn't really hear you, but it sounds valuable.
Oh, so you said that the biggest issue is the language barrier, but perhaps it's not entirely out of the university's control because, for example, they could make it a requirement for all exchange students to take a Korean language course, which would help with the language barrier.
Okay, can I make a comment to that?
Yeah.
So for some exchange students though, like a Korean language class would be out of their like required classes for their degree. So how would that, not saying it wouldn't benefit, but wouldn't it be more difficult for some people since it making it required would be very unbeneficial for some people?
I mean, it could, but the students are also choosing to be here. So like if they knew that it's like that's something that they'd have to do, I mean, it's still their choice.
Yeah.
Found a program that allows you free access to study Korean language here. Is there courses that you know of already open for you?
Yeah, there are actually some language courses that teach Korean language. Some for specific for exchange students, and some for specifically taking the topic Korean language testing program.
Outside of the regular curriculum, is that right? So like a casual social, maybe just on weekends, 1 hour on weekends type of program. I think what I heard from Samaj is that maybe her university only allows her to take courses that she can get credit for, and she might not be able to get credit for a language program, a language course. So if she follows both what Gwen is saying, if there is a course open on Saturday mornings, just like a social course to help learn the Korean language, that may be the solution. So have you found something like that? Not a fairly serious, full credit, big exam course. Have you heard of those? Such as the City Hall programs? No?
Well,
No,
there's
I
a
never heard.
program, not the Kamyong. It doesn't belong to Kamyong, but the Daegu City Hall. They have this program every week, and it's free. You can go there and learn Korean from professional teacher. But it's
Thank
not
you.
only for
Thank
students.
you,
it's,
Jesser, for your. Yeah, that's a good idea. I didn't know it existed. Thank you.
Right. And it's not promoted within the international community here at Gaming. So that's a good solution also. The whole focus is great. I'm pretty excited about it. Thank you. Any other comments about what about regardless of this, the message they're giving, any comments about their style of presenting or their intention, how you could modify details to improve understanding of their intention?
I have a comment for that.
Okay.
I saw like 2 slides just with pictures, which was talking about the percentage of like body students attending the body programs. But I mean, it was great, but it would be better if there were some words instead of just like a flag, the picture of the flag, because I could hear what you're saying, but sometimes I think there are some students who it will be better for them to, I mean, not just to listen, but to read the contents. So it will be more easy to understand. I mean, easier to understand for them and also for me. But those were very. But your saying was very clear to understand. But it will be better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe I should have added some bullet points along with the image, so you can read. Yeah, that maybe should have been better.
But your message was very clear, Thank you.
Okay.
Awesome. So that was a very valuable last few words that you just said. I think that was Kyunggan Jung. Is that right? You
Yes,
said
sir.
the message was very clear. Great. How about Kyunggan Jung? Select one of your classmates and ask them what was the main message they just taught. Number one, what was the specific message they taught? Question number two, what source of research did they show that was most valuable? Can you ask any one of your classmates those questions?
May I ask Arfin, if you do not mind?
Good luck. Arfin, are you there?
Yes, Professor.
Please talk to Kyunggan Jung. Answer his question.
Actually, I have to give presentation after this, so I'm just focus on my presentation.
Okay, that's a polite way to say I didn't listen to them at all. Okay, good. Next, try Kyunggan Jung. Who else would you like to ask?
And maybe Kyunggan Jung, you should ask a question because you just selected our theme, but you didn't ask a question.
I asked the question.
Yeah, you asked the question, Professor, but you asked many.
To select somebody to answer my question.
Okay.
Can I try, sir?
Sure.
Well, first of all, I don't remember hearing much from literature review, like the previous studies that has been done, but although they have covered like the status quo and the current problem and so what's going on around KMU. And the second question, the first question you asked, what are they teaching the world? I think they are making suggestions and improvements that can be made in KMU to help international students to spend better time and have better experience while they are in KMU and study in Korea. I think that's a valuable message, and that can be used to improve international students' satisfaction, and also it can maybe attract more students to come to Korea and more students to choose KMU for their institution where they can study.
Right, absolutely. Their intention to try to help the university is great. I'm asking specifically, what are 2 sentences they're teaching the world? Second question was, what research article or support did they have to support that lesson?
Well,
or is it just their guess?
I can answer that, Professor.
Okay.
Because it's our presentation. So our references.
Your presentation, and you present it without the class being able to understand it. That is a cross-cultural
you're right.
Cultural communication challenge, right? We're trying to learn how to make sure other people understand our message. So I love your message and I understand your message, but I'm a freak. So I was just wondering, does anybody know what's 1 or 2 sentences? What was the message you taught? Because that should be the core of the abstract. And then whatever you say you want to do, should we believe you? Is it reliable, or is it just a guess? That's why I asked those questions. So can anybody else in class answer those? What about Mukalisa? Would you be able to answer that?
As I understand from their presentation, they are like trying to teach us the barriers in between the cultures and how to handle those problems.
The general idea is great. So what is 1 or 2 sentences that is the lesson? Not the topic, not the title of what they want to do. What did they teach you? If you can repeat in 1 sentence to the world, what did you learn from this? Again, it's the intention. I understand both, but some people may not. How about Zarnigar? Can I challenge you? Zarnigar, do you remember what is the 1 sentence lesson they're teaching?
Oh, it's really hard because they taught us a lot of information. I don't know how to put it in 1 sentence.
Good. So why am I asking that? Because so many people are communicating online nowadays. If you don't catch their attention with your main point within a few seconds, they're going to switch to some other topic. That's why you should start quickly with what it is that you're teaching. Not just interested in. Go ahead. I think Jules. Yes, go ahead.
I don't know about others, but what I've learned from their presentation is that on this slide they're sharing, it says we should be willing to learn about other cultures and our best to handle cultural differences, but also embrace them as we live in a globalized world. I think that's the main point that I've learned from this presentation, that we have to find ways to explore and make it easy for people, for others to learn about other cultures. That's what I've learned so far.
Awesome. Their very last line they're giving is maybe the most important, and it should probably be in the abstract. Thank you. That's perfect. I will assume everyone in the class is going to be going through and doing an evaluation. Before we run out of time, we have 10 more minutes. I understand there's 1 other person that's going to be presenting today. Is that Arfin?
Yes, Professor.
Present yours now?
Yes. Um,
Looks great. Go ahead.
may I start, Professor?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about the role of social media in cultural adaptability. First, I will explain, give you a little bit information about this, and then survey result, and at the last, I will give my opinion on about this. So, according to the Taylor, culture refers to quality shared by the people of a particular social group in the form of social values, morality, beliefs, traditions, or acquired ability developing or referred by time. As countries around the world possess unique culture identities, shape their tradition, religion, and social beliefs, and place great value to these identities in their mutual communication. So it became a necessity to adopt the culture values to make living and working a success in foreign nations. So here is a quotation of Qing and Zhang. According to this, the comparison of time and space due to the convergence of new media and globalization has sprung the world into much smaller interactive field. Internet and social media helped connecting people of different cultures irrespective of time and space. So to explain this, here's how cultural adaptability allow the people to remain psychological healthy and hence able to survive the challenges of new atmosphere and engage in communication. Competitions, person can only work efficiently in new atmosphere if he get adopted to it. To explain this, here is a theory of Ligod use adjustment theory. According to this theory, immigrants' experience in foreign nations can be divided into four categories named as honeymoon, crisis, adjustment, and by uh, culturalism. Du- During honeymoon period, people feel excited for being in a new culture. The honeymoon period is soon followed by the crisis in which people get exposed to multiple challenges, causing resentment, and people need adjustment to overcome this phase and enter biculturalism, where people live to learn to live new culture along with maintaining old values. Functioning motivation of using social media can be well explained by 4C model, that is connect, create, consume, and control. Facebook helps connecting people, allow the creation of content like blogs, posts, and videos, consumptions like reading, listening, and watching the shared content, and control to privacy and profile setting. So my question is that my study focuses how social media helped in cultural adaptability in South Korea. So a web survey was designed to collect responses of immigrants, including students and workers in South Korea, in order to get understanding of their experience in adaptations to Korean culture and role social media played in their adaptability. So here are the results of the survey. So majority of participants in my study group were from Pakistan and came to Korea for study. Almost 40% of participants were from worker class. So Popular social media among participants is Facebook, followed by Twitter and YouTube. The motivation for using social media is socialization through that is chatting with friends and making new friends. Others use it to experience themselves and to get news and information. Uh, Major difficulties faced by participants was due to language, and some also found the cultural attitude in developing communications with Korean and hence culture adaptable. A majority of participants appreciate the role of social media in their adaptability before reaching Korea. People got useful information through online communities and videos and on YouTube. After reaching it helps them to overcome cultural shock by connecting them to Korean people and increasing their understanding of Korean culture. Social media also helps people to connect with their loved ones in home country and country fellows in Korea. It also allowed people to get news related to their home countries, thus strengthening their sense of community. A big portion from my study group think that social media helped them to understand Korean people and developing communication with them. Almost 75% people believe that social media helped them in be friending with Korean. Majority of people from my study group were satisfied for begin on social media. A little percentage altogether expressed neither satisfied nor dissatisfied emotions. None of participants expressed dissatisfaction. Uh, at the end of my presentation, so my conclusion is my studies suggested that social media provide great help to provide in their cultural adaptability by linking them with people of host country and exchange information and news with them. It also helps them to develop sense of community by connecting them to friends and family in home country. Here is my references that stand off my presentation. If you have a question or suggestion.
Wow, perfect timing too. Just a couple minutes left. Please try to get some feedback from your classmates.
So anybody who wants to comment?
Thank you for your presentation. It was like interesting to know extra information. But and I also want to mention about the design. I really like it, the way how you design it, and it's everything is like clear and understandable, especially the graphs, the charts. I mean.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any suggestions for consideration of cultural differences? Other views?
I just have one question. So from what I was noticing from your presentation, the social media culture that you were specifically speaking about was South Korea, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I would just recommend like at least next time put that in like your title. Like if you were going to do the road of social media and cultural adaptation, I would say in South Korea, since you were specifically talking about Korea. But that's my only like main.
Also use it in your title. Make sure you use as many opportunities as you can for your intention and message to be clear. So your file names, make sure they have your name and the title name, class name in addition. So thank you very much for that, Samaj. I believe we are finished for today. Unfortunately, I guess you guys are all online. I have a big bag of goodies to give out, like a pizza party, but nobody's here. Everybody's online. You guys are going to have to teach me how to have a pizza party with people online from around the world. Thank you very much.
I can go to classroom right now, Professor.
Sorry?
I can go to classroom right now.
You could. Make sure that your files are in Facebook. Make sure your files are emailed to me. Make sure your evaluations of other people are also included. Make sure with the files you're sending, you're giving the link to your Google Drive folder in order to get marks. Any questions about that? Any other comments? Am I forgetting something, Hua? No?
And also make sure you go to the evaluation template and nominate people for student awards.
Yes, please. Today, please tell me your evaluation form so I know who you're voting for, so some of you can win class awards. Clear? Yes, sir. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not just babbling by myself.
Yeah, I know, sir.
Can you summarize to Zarnigar, since she never listens to me anyway, right, Zarnigar?
Oh, that's so wrong. I always listen to you.
Because you're always the angel, right? What was my message, Yasser or Zarnigar? Where do you do the voting or nomination?
We
actually got it in the forms. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so you want us to give grades to students and nominate who's the best student in the class and submit you by today?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay.
You can email that or post it on Facebook. Have a good day, guys. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good day.